Hello everyone, and welcome back to Stellaris. I'm Lord and here with another guide. This time we're going to be talking about Starbases, because I have had several requests for this already. I figured this is a nice, easy one to cover. So, Starbases are kind of the center of how you interact with the galaxy. Yes, you've got your planets, and yes, you have diplomacy, but Starbases are how you build ships, how you defend from invasions. You even build civilian ships from them and stuff. So let's quick go over Starbases and their buildings. So this right here is your starting starbase in your capital, or in this case, my capital. Now I've upgraded it once, but you will always start with a shipyard and a trade hub. Assuming you are an empire that has trade. So this does not include machine empires or hive minds. And you will also start with a crew quarters. The crew quarters will give you a 25% reduced ship upkeep. So when you're not using your navy early game, park it in this on the starbase. If you do, it will show a nice little green status docked at starbase, reducing ship upkeep by 25%. The shipyard will allow you to train ships one at a time, and the trade hub will allow you to collect trade. It has a collection range of 1. So what that means is, for trade, it collects in the home system automatically, but then it extends it out 1 star planet, basically. 1 star system to collect trade. Now, if we look at the starbase, I'm not going back in again, I have built a second shipyard and a trade hub. This is important. So by building the second trade hub, it in fact increases the collection range to 2. So I'm actually collecting here from Yomon, but from my capital one. If I were to build a third one, I'd be collecting from Thrad. However, it probably would not be the biggest benefit for me to build in Thrad, because I don't have much trade elsewhere in the Empire. There's no real point going 3 anywhere else, because all I would pick up would be Thrad, and that's it. There would be no other trade benefit for me. So that's how you collect trade with them. However, I do have another planet down here, so it might be worth building a trade system, starbase, and putting a trade thing in here, this system, because then with the 1 trade collection round, it would collect this. If at some point this grows larger, or I start colonizing up here, I could extend it, and I believe, I haven't tested it fully, I believe it goes through this nation here in terms of collection range, but I could be wrong. Now, as the game progresses, as you see, I've got a world up here and I've got one here. It could be very worthwhile for me to put either a starbase here and have a 2-range collection system from it. That would get me not only this little bit of trade occurring naturally, but it would capture this planet and this planet. So that is actually a very good possibility I will do as the game progresses. Build a low-level starbase, probably level 1, put a trade range in it, collect trade from both of those, at which point it will get shipped back to my capital. Obviously, you do have to defend trade as it moves through your systems. There's a nice little trade route map down here I do advise you to learn and use. And it will basically tell you what the protection is for your trade. In my experience, this is hard to control. It's rather kind of annoying to have to deal with. You can assign ships on like patrol routes and stuff. Let's see, where is that? I don't use it. I really don't use it, which is why I have issues. Here we go, patrol. It's up here. You can do this, and you can assign systems. If you assign on the trade route, they'll travel the trade system. They'll increase the trade protection, and they'll also kill any pirates that may pop up, and they get some experience. I don't find it very much of a problem unless you've got long stretches, like if I was shipping trade all the way from here back to my capital, because all trade has to flow through the capital, there might be issues. But because I have stuck starbases periodically on the way, you'll see that the trade protection is high. You get a benefit from each of your starbases in the area, so it's quite useful in that sense. So other things, if we wanted to build, oh yes, I forgot the other thing. Now, because I have 2 shipyards here, if I build 2 ships, or if I build ships in general, here we'll unpause for a moment, you'll see I am now working on 2 ships at once. You can, of course, increase that and fill up an entire 6 slots of a starbase with shipyards. You'll be able to produce 6 ships at once. Late game, if you're fighting against like a crisis or something, or a major war, may be worth doing. Early on though, producing 2 is usually enough unless you're going on a crazy conquest spree, and since your starting one already starts with a single shipyard, it's usually worth building a second one. Unless, of course, you're afraid your capital's going to be invaded, in which case, get rid of the shipyard, probably keep the trade hub, and build defenses in your system, and build another one to produce ships. So let's talk defense. So as you can see, I have 3 here. They're called Bastions, or they're at the Star Fortress level. They will be upgraded, or they can be upgraded to the Star Fortress level. And it's expensive. I have a 33% discount because I went down the supremacy tree here. Right here, the Great Game reduces it by 33%. It's quite useful. And when it's expanded, it will give me access to these 2 more module slots in one of the buildings. There'll still be a last one for the Citadel upgrade, which is very powerful. But in terms of defense, when you set up a Starbase, obviously, you have available initially 2 modules. I haven't bothered to unlock the 3rd. You'll have gun batteries and missile batteries. And later on you can do, I forget what it's called. There's one that basically has tons of little swarming ships. So like, I forget what it's called. Sorry about that. Basically, there's one, you'll know it when you see it. It has little ships involved and they send out and fight. I have not found it to be immensely useful. I assume it's there to counter corvettes. But in my experience, you want to build a gun battery and then a missile battery and keep those ratios the same. Obviously, you could change that if you're fighting an empire that uses mostly shields, in which case you want more guns. Or somebody who's using armor, in which case, or health points, in which case missiles and stuff would be more useful. So I recommend a gun battery followed by a missile, followed by a gun or missile. It doesn't matter in which order because you'll have them locked. The reason I do this is the missiles have a farther range to some degree to attack with. The guns have a limited range. The missiles attack slightly further on the starbase, and this can be very useful. So with the missiles, you start hitting the ships as soon as they enter the system almost. 2/3 of the distance, and when they get closer, the guns take over and will help as well. There is an upgrade I should mention for buildings where you can do target uplink computer, which extends your ship weapon range by 50%. It counts on the starbase, which basically gives them 50% range, makes missiles hit the whole system, makes guns hit most of the system. Means the ships really have to travel quite a distance already being shot by your starbase before they actually can get in range to attack. It can be very useful to build. Doesn't give you any direct strength, but it increases the time you can fire, so it's very strong. In terms of buildings, there's really 2 you want to start with. The first one I find the best is Disruption Field Generator. Basically, when you build it, it makes it so that the enemy ships in the system have 20% less of their shield hit points. Obviously, this is a great thing because most ships will have shields. It makes it much easier. It weakens their fleet considerably, especially against an enemy that might rely heavily on superior tech shields. You'll just punch right through them still. 20% decrease is immense. The next one I recommend is the Communications Jammer. This one stacks very nicely with what I said for the target uplink computer. This one reduces their movement speed by 20% and makes it so that they have a 20% less chance of disengaging and waiting out the battle. Obviously, the slower they move, the more time your starbase has time to shoot them. So if you stack that with a target uplink computer, you'll be hammering them quite a bit longer before they really start getting in range and doing damage, especially if they use something like corvettes or destroyers, which are short range, compared to cruisers or battleships, which will hit for a longer range. So this falls off a little bit as the game progresses. If you stack it with both, it's really good. There is another one. I haven't unlocked it yet in this game. It basically allows you to build the defenses. So I love the concept of defenses. I don't necessarily love the way they're implemented. Basically, there's obviously a tab down here called defenses. What defenses is basically a immobile ship that unfortunately once it's destroyed, you have to rebuild it. Unlike Starbases, which will automatically repair themselves, these are like one-time use ships. They're pretty strong. If you stick a lot of them in an area, you can usually do like 9 or so on the upgrade. And later on, there's a defense that allows you to build, I think, 6 or 7 more. You can have like 20 somewhat defensive platforms on a starbase, and it will become almost untakeable. They are rather expensive in terms of alloy. And as the game goes on, you will find that you have to keep upgrading them. The little upgrade indication next to the fleet will start popping up against your starbase, and so you can then have to go there and then do upgrade. Right there, upgrade all star defensive platforms. It's annoying, but if you've got a position that's going to be attacked a lot, it can be worth the investment. I have personally been thinking of building some up in this system because I am right next to a driven assimilator, but I have recently made a non-aggression pact with them, and they are not likely to invade me, but it still didn't prevent me from building a defensive station right on their borders and upgrading it. Now, in terms of choke points, you may wonder why I built one there, and then here. Obviously, I started one in the capital. So this one was a natural one to build, as I'm sure you can see, because I play on slightly reduced hyperlanes, 75, which I recommend for everyone who likes using starbases, which I do. I built it here. So this is the only way into my empire in the south. Not counting these guys, obviously, because they're the caravans. They won't attack. Which means this is the position I have to hold if I'm invaded. Obviously, right now, we've got the star tribes between me and everyone else, which proved to be useful. Otherwise, I'd have probably run into issues with the assimilators. But fortifying this, if these guys try to invade, like they're bribed, because they're the mercenaries, this will not only give me time to muster a defensive force, it will hopefully blunt them a little bit. We're going to get that like to 6k. They will attack with more than that, but starbases are definitely better at holding off fleets than the numbers would suggest sometimes, especially if you've upgraded them properly, especially the reduced shields and stuff. The game really doesn't fully take that into account. So obviously this one's right here to protect stuff. You could build them on your starbases on your planet, in your planet systems, but the downside for that is if I build it right here in Neomon, the AI can just simply go around it and attack to Thrad, can get to my capital world pretty quickly. But by putting it here, I force them to a decisive battle. If I lose this position, they can overrun all of this. But if I put it here, they'll just overrun all of this before coming for this system, which will give me a little bit of time to muster a defense. But they won't be weakened. The base starbase in every system is like 176 combat. It won't do anything to a marauder fleet. So putting it here makes a lot more sense. Now, if I moved my fleet down here, 5k plus this, I'd have about 8 or 9k to defend the system. This is very powerful. However, if you are going to fight an invasion, let's say they come from this sim system, right? Your fleet, every time you move to a system, moves to the center of the system. That's just how the game tries to do it. I recommend, however, if you're going to move your fleet in here, you place it roughly where this science research center is, behind your starbase from the direction they're coming. Why do I recommend this? The starbase heals. The starbase will always repair itself given a short amount of time to full fleet, full strength. You also can't lose the starbase. Although, to be fair, if you lose the starbase, you lose the system. But if they take the starbase and then you still win the battle, you can easily retake the starbase as the time continues, which makes your starbase immensely disposable in space battles. The only exception might this be is if your fleet is pathetic, but your starbase is really strong. Like your fleet might have lots of corvettes and stuff, whereas your starbase could be very powerful, in which case it might be worth putting the corvettes in front to give your starbase more time to fire. But since the starbase heals and repairs and my fleet would be stronger and I can lose it, I'd place the fleet behind the starbase, let the starbase take the initial brunt of their long-range attacks before they get close to engage, at which point my fleet moves in, and at that point you can't control the battle anyway. So it's better to have them start the focus on the starbase. Now, there is a specific circumstance I will mention, which is rather cool. I'm trying to see if I can find... I don't think I have one in my system. Anyway, there are... I wonder if this will work here. No. Well, anyway, this will show my concept. So, black holes. There are environmental hazards inside some systems. In this case, this black hole has a disengagement chance reduction of 50%. If you were to stack this with the building and the starbase, this would be 70, which means almost no ships are going to manage to retreat from the battle. And also they'll take extra damage from the FTL jump. That wasn't what I was looking for. I was looking for I think a pulsar, if I'm wrong. I can't find one. It's worth checking your systems to see if you have environmental hazards, because they make great defensive choke points. There is one, I think it's a pulsar star. I can't be 100% positive, since I obviously don't have one here. But if you look at the environmental hazard, where it says right now this will say 100% shield nullification from like the pulsar binary star thing. This means, and this is amazing, that any fleet that moves in the system will not have shields. They'll instantly turn off. It can be very devastating for you if you invade into a system that has that nullification and you rely on high-tech shields. All of a sudden your ships are going to be 10 times weaker than you thought they were. On the other hand, it means the starbase won't have shields, and it means any defending fleets won't have shields. So in that case, you want higher hit points on your ships, and you want heavier armor. So if you're a nation that relies on a nullification shield system to defend yourself, focus on armor tech and hit point tech rather than shields, because it won't be very useful. Now, why do I mention this? It's because it makes this building right here, shield hit points negative 20, entirely useless. You don't want to build this in that system. Reducing something that doesn't already exist to zero, past zero, doesn't do anything. So you're much better to shift to something else. So I realized I forgot something earlier, so we're going to jump back to the capital Starbase. This building down here, Off-World Trading Company, produces 2 trade value for each trade hub. So each of these counts as a trade hub. By building this, I've automatically gotten 4 trade from them, which is basically, well, let's see what my policy is here to handle it. Economic policy, mixed economy. So there's no penalties or bonuses one way or the other. Trade policy, wealth creation. For every 1 collected trade value, we get 1 energy credit. So that basically, by doing it this way, by having 2 of these and then building this, I've basically given myself 4 income. It's one of the few ways to generate trade in the game that doesn't occur naturally from jobs and population growth. So if you made one maxed at all out with all trade hub modules, first off, you're going to be collecting from 6 planets away, which is huge. You can do a whole empire. If I built it down here, collecting 6 away would get me all the way up to here, which is majority of my empire. But more importantly, by putting in the trade company, it would then give me 12 income, which will basically pay for the upkeep of each of these, which is obviously 1 energy, but it will also pay for the upkeep of the Starbase, which does have an upkeep. Right now it's about 2.4. So if you want to stack trade, like you're playing tall, you're playing as a corporation, this is a very useful building, the Off-World Trading Company. I believe the corporations have a slightly different one, but it's the same concept. Stacking trade hubs and building off-world trading companies together makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to just quick run through the other stuff here that I have available. There are some more to be unlocked later, but these are the common ones most players are going to have. Hydroponics Bay gets you 10, in this case 14 food. It's a base of 10, but I have modifiers. This can be very useful, especially if you have worlds that don't have food production and you're struggling with it. However, food is pretty easy to do, so I don't tend to build it that much. Resource silos, if you're having trouble in like you're maxing out all your resources, which you really shouldn't be, you should be spending them. But you could be playing a very small nation like a corporation and have tons of resources. which case build a starbase, stick it with 6 silos, and you'll almost double the amount of resources you can hold, which is very powerful. Otherwise, though, I don't tend to build it that much. Listening posts has a very interesting use, especially with how espionage and stuff works. It could be very useful. So, it basically allows you detection radius, which it says that, but I'll explain what it means, because it's not entirely obvious. So it gives a sensor range of 2. What does that mean? It means you can then see 2 systems away. So if I put it here in the DIFTA, or however you would want to say that, it would allow me to see everything going on inside this system. Right now, I can kind of see that there's fleets and stuff here, but it would provide these details if I didn't have them through like diplomacy or something. Like here, I can't see if they've built anything. It would allow me to see what they've built in the system. And more importantly, the other modifier it provides, the ship hyperlane detection range. So it is possible to see a fleet moving without knowing what's in the fleet. So this 2 systems, I would see everything. 4 systems away, I would see an icon of a ship, but I wouldn't be able to tell what was in the ship. So it can be very useful, of course, in border systems. I believe you can actually stack it and have multiple listening posts in one system, so you can get a huge visual radius of like an enemy that you're going to invade. It will let you know where their fleets are. It will also give you warnings before their fleets arrive at your system, so you can move to adapt. I find it more useful when you're playing with more hyperlanes and you don't have stuff like choke points, which I enjoy. It can be very useful because you can then have your fleet stationed in listening posts along the border. The listening post detects them. You rush your fleet over to intercept. This deep space black site is pretty useless in my opinion. It basically gives a governing ethics attraction, which tries to move population in your planet towards your ethics. However, the game doesn't really do that well. Ethics attraction is still a little bit broken, even in this update from what I can see. The stability is nice. If you conquered an enemy capital or something and they have, the ethics are completely opposed to yours, they're always rebellious, building this would get you 5 stability, which would help control revolts, rebellions, and crime, and it would slowly over time convert them. It's pretty unreliable though. And there's a couple other ones. You can get like art installations, but they tend to have to be built in areas with curators. They'll give you a boost of unity or something. It's kind of useful. By and large, though, you can basically just rely on shipyards, trade hubs, and missile gun batteries. And honestly, I can't remember what the other one's called. It's like a fleet battery, basically. Think of it that way. So that's basically how you use Starbases and where you put them. This one right here is set up to stop anything from getting to my capital. Again, this is another choke point. If I had thought properly, and I may do it, I would have moved this station from here to this system here to prevent anyone from getting to this world. However, when I built this, I didn't control these planets, so that's why I built them. And this one obviously is for the exact same reason the southern one is to hold off any invading fleet. As a matter of fact, it may look like I'm not doing very well compared to everyone else here. I'm trapped in this very little small system. However, I am the world's, or the galaxy's, tech leader. I'm also, because I am so small, I've been able to focus into the diplo weight modifiers. As you can see, I've got a lot of diplomatic weight. I'm leading the community. When there's the Galactic Council founds, I will be on it. As the game progresses, so long as I can stay at the top in terms of diplomacy, I'll have a chance to become the new galactic leader / hegemon / empire. It may be very possible for my little republic here to become an empire that dominates the galaxy without ever having to conquer my neighbors. Obviously, I'm not conquering these guys because they're huge compared to me. But I built tall, and I'm doing very well. As a matter of fact, I've built habitats. I'm not going to go into habitats. That would be an entirely separate video. If people want to see that, let me know. And I think that basically covers everything. Basically, you got a starbase capacity, and you can increase it. It's worth building to it. At worst comes to worst, as I said, you can just build a starbase, fill it with trade hubs, and then an off-world trading company and make money. It's a great way to make money if you've got spare starbase capacity. I will point out, though, because this is something a lot of people forget, you can downgrade starbases. Like, you can actually put them back to level 1, at which case they will disappear from your starbase capacity, and they'll just go back to your default starport thing. And you can do that, and it's a great way to free up space. So as your borders expand, make sure to disband the old ones and move them forward. It's kind of like forts in like EU4 or Imperator. Actually, I did forget something. FTL inhibitors. So an FTL inhibitor prevents a fleet from moving past the system till it takes whatever has the FTL inhibitor. In this case, it's the starbase, but you can actually build FTL inhibitors on your planets right here. The stronghold, if you build this, I think it's right there. I could be, let me see. Let me double check something. Oh, I can't check it. Oh, well, I'll do this way. Okay. You can build them. I believe it's with, it might be a level 2 now. On level 2 stronghold, we'll have an FTL inhibitor on the planet, which means not only do they have to invade, take your starbase, starport, whatever, but they then have to invade and conquer your planet in order to be able to go past the system. So if you've got a planet and a starbase on a border system, so let's pretend for a second this was my border planet and this was the choke point. So let's pretend I had the planet here. So I've got the starbase with the FTL inhibitor and it's fully defensive. They take that, but they still can't move out of the system because the planet would have an FTL inhibitor, and so they'd have to take that as well, increasing the amount of time, forcing them to bring an army, which especially AIs don't tend to bring an army transport fleet with them, which would delay them further. They can bombard the planet as much as they want. They won't destroy the FTL inhibitor without a landing force, unless they get like a really lucky event or something. Just remember then, if you're counter-invading and they own the planet, you have to then retake the planet to get past the FTL inhibitor as well. The FTL inhibitor is a tech. Engineering. It is, I believe it's engineering. Give me a sec. Oh, it's not. So it must be a science one. Sorry about that. Where is it? Here we go. FTL inhibition. It's basically a pretty early one, as you can see. It's 4,000. It gives a planetary one and it gives a starbase one, and the inhibitor reduces the FTL jump ability. It's a modifier automatically, even though it says like you have to install it. It really isn't. There we go. Planets with at least one stronghold or fortress building will be able to inhibit the FTL drives of hostile fleets. I recommend getting this as soon as you can, as soon as you see it. It allows you to actually build choke points. It allows you to actually defend your systems better. Okay, I believe that's it. I think we've covered everything that is to cover about starbases. If you guys have any questions, obviously let me know, and I'll try and answer them. Hopefully this has helped you guys understand a fundamental concept of Stellaris better. If you've, of course, enjoyed this video, please do like, subscribe, join my Discord and stuff. Or recommend other guides you'd like to see. I'll try and do some of them. And I will talk to you guys all another time. Bye for now.